Ayurveda, healing through diet, herbal remedies, and meditation.
2 timeless traditions.
2 priceless Indian gifts to the world.
From well-being to perfect health.
How can you incorporate yoga and Ayurveda in daily life? As the world gears up for International Yoga Day,
WION celebrates India's gift to mankind on this special series.
Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan Channa.
And I'm Raisha Sehgal. On the show today, the International Court of Justice will rule today on a request by South Africa to order Israel to implement a ceasefire in Gaza. Meanwhile, US President Joe Biden has said that Washington does not recognize the jurisdiction of the ICJ, further emphasizing on how Israel's actions cannot be equated with that of Hamas. We'll of course be tracking that very closely on World DNA this morning.
Also on the show, China is conducting its biggest military exercise in over a year around Taiwan in response to the inauguration of Taiwan's new president, Lai Ching-te. Beijing has described the drills as a strong punishment for Taiwan's separatist acts. What are going to be the implications of that? We are going to be tracking that closely as well. For now, let's get you started with the headlines. This is World DNA.
CIA Director William Burns to travel to Europe to meet Mossad Chief David Barnea and Qatari Prime Minister Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman Al Thani in an effort to revive hostage release talks.
Will not be deterred from pursuing war on Hamas, says Israel ahead of the International Court of Justice decision on South Africa's request for order to halt military actions in the Gaza Strip.
Police and demonstrators clash at University of California in Los Angeles hours after head of the university told US House panel that school should have been ready to immediately remove Palestinian encampment.
Beijing says ongoing drills encircling Taiwan are a test of the military's ability to seize power over the self-ruled island.
Joe Biden welcomes Kenyan President William Ruto for state visit, pledges new era of partnership on technology, security and debt relief to the leader of one of Africa's strongest democracies.
Disturbing footage reveals immediate aftermath of stage collapse in Mexico that killed 9 and injured at least 50, with people running and screaming as strong winds below.
India's Met Department warns of heat wave in Delhi and adjoining North Indian states of Rajasthan, Punjab and Haryana. Intense heat leaves 9 dead in Rajasthan.
Nvidia adds over $200 billion in market value on Thursday. The shares rise over 9%, building on a stunning rally after a bumper revenue forecast and AI demand boom. Today, the International Court of Justice will rule on South Africa's request to order a halt to Israel's Rafah offensive in Gaza.
Right, Shivan, and this after South Africa petitioned the ICJ for emergency measures asking Israel to cease its military operations in the Gaza Strip, in particular the Rafah city where it is pressing an offensive. In the last week hearing, South Africa accused Israel of committing genocide in Gaza, saying that it had hit a new and horrific stage with its assault on Rafah. While Israeli lawyers hit back at South Africa, calling it completely divorced from reality, making a mockery of the 1948 UN Genocide Convention it is accused of breaching.
South Africa has urged the World Court to issue a halt order to ensure the survival of the Palestinian people. The rulings of the ICJ, which judges on disputes between states, are binding, but they have no power to enforce them. Now, it is the fourth time that South Africa has appealed to the court, with Israel accusing the country of abusing the procedure. Back in January, the World Court ordered Israel to do everything in its power to prevent genocidal acts and enable humanitarian aid to Gaza, but the court stopped short of ordering a ceasefire.
Meanwhile, ahead of the World Court ruling, Israel has said that it will not be deterred from pursuing its war on Hamas. When asked whether Israel would comply with a possible ICJ ruling against it, the Israeli government spokesperson said that no power on earth will stop Israel from protecting its citizens and going after Hamas in Gaza.
No power on earth will stop Israel from protecting its citizens and going after Hamas in Gaza. We will destroy Hamas. We will return peace and security to the people of Israel and to the people of Gaza. We cannot go on with a genocidal terrorist regime on our southern border. We will destroy Hamas.
But for more on this, we now have with us Dr. Malcolm Davis. He's joining us live from Canberra. Dr. Davis is a senior analyst in defense strategy and capability at Australian Strategic Policy Institute. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Dr. Davis. Now, the ICJ will rule today on a request by South Africa to implement a ceasefire in Gaza. And just a day before the ruling, Israel has said that it will not comply with any orders from the World Court. What are the wider implications of the ruling today, especially at a time when we are witnessing Israel losing support in the global arena?
Well, look, I think I entirely understand Israel's position here. There is no equivalency between the actions of Israel and the actions of Hamas. And I would suggest that irrespective of what finding or resolution the ICJ come up with, Hamas will not stop their actions and their attacks against Israel. So Israel does have to continue to defend itself. I do think that Israel does have to defend itself in a manner that's consistent with international humanitarian law, but they do have the right to defend themselves against attacks by a ruthless terrorist organization. The challenge they face is that if they refuse this resolution, if they refuse a ceasefire, which they will, then it will become more difficult for the international community that is supportive of Israel to maintain that support, particularly in terms of political support and also arms shipments. And the key step that will go on from this is that whilst the ICJ resolution has no enforceability, it could prompt a UN Security Council resolution that does have enforceability to be put forward, and it's likely the US would then veto that resolution.
Dr. Davis, you mentioned that Israel needs to continue to defend itself. Given the way things are right now, do you feel it is defending itself at the moment, given the death toll on the Palestinian side?
Well, look, Hamas started this on October the 7th. Israel has retaliated. I do think that Israel needs to probably consider how it goes about its military operations to try and reduce the risk of civilian casualties. I think everyone understands that. But if Israel stopped fighting tomorrow and withdrew all their forces, firstly, there's no guarantee that Hamas would release the hostages. Secondly, there's no guarantee that Hamas would not then launch further October 7th style attacks on Israel. So that places Israel in a dilemma. On the one hand, they have to be able to fight against Hamas. They have to release the hostages. But on the other hand, in doing so, they do cause civilian casualties. They can certainly work to reduce those civilian casualties, but they are defending themselves because they know that Hamas have no intention whatsoever of allowing Israel to exist. And if they stop fighting, if Israel stops fighting and accepts a ceasefire, Hamas will go on the offensive and continue to attack Israel.
All right, Dr. Davis, thanks for sharing those insights. Of course, you've also done a bit of foretelling here regarding what happens next once the ruling is out. Thank you for those insights. Always a pleasure speaking with you and joining us here on World DNA. That was Dr. Malcolm Davis joining us from Canberra.
Thank you.
Well, Israel's military has pushed deep into the heart of Rafah, entering new neighborhoods and also intensifying their fight against Hamas.
Now, ahead of an international court ruling on the operation, the Israeli army says the troops are continuing operational activity in specific areas of Rafah. They are currently operating based on information regarding terror targets. As Israel continues with their operations inside Gaza's southernmost city, Hamas claims that they are holding an Israeli colonel who they had captured back on 7th of October last year.
The claims come as months ago, Israeli military reported that Hamas had killed 41-year-old Colonel Azif Hamami in the October 7th attack. In an effort to revive talks for the release of Israeli hostages held by Hamas, reports suggest in the coming days, CIA Director William Burns will travel to Europe to meet with Mossad chief and the Qatari Prime Minister.
Meanwhile, US House Speaker has said that Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu will soon address a joint meeting of Congress amid heightened tensions with Joe Biden over the Israeli leader's handling of the war in Gaza. Johnson added that such a speech is sure to further anger some progressive Democrats who are increasingly critical of Israel's military campaign in Gaza and Biden's support for it.
On the other hand, trucks carrying badly needed aid for the Gaza Strip are rolling across the newly built temporary American floating pier into the besieged territory. The latest shipment of aid came through France, which was being unloaded on the temporary pier.
While Colombia, whose president has described Israel's campaign in Gaza as genocidal, the country says that they will open an embassy in Ramallah in West Bank.
President Petro has instructed us to install the Colombian embassy in Ramallah. That is the next step we are going to take. We are sure that more and more countries will recognize Palestine, and this is nothing against the people of Israel.
US President Joe Biden says the US does not recognize the jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court after the tribunal's chief prosecutor requested arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and its Defense Minister Yoav Gallant.
Our position clear on the ICC. We don't recognize the jurisdiction of ICC the way it's being exercised, and it's that simple. We don't think there's an equivalence between what Israel did and what Hamas did.
The US, which has also become the flashpoint of pro-Palestinian protests across universities, leaders of Northwestern, UCLA and Rutgers have testified before Congress on campus protests. The presidents of Northwestern universities defended their decisions to end pro-Palestinian encampments through negotiations rather than police force.
We made a choice. That choice was to engage our students through dialogue as a first option instead of police action. We had seen what transpired at other universities and sought a different way.
Clashes between police and demonstrators at the University of California at Los Angeles broke out just hours after the head of UCLA told US House panel that they should have been ready to immediately remove encampment of pro-Palestinian activists.
Shifting focus to China now. China's military drills around Taiwan have entered day 2. The exercise in Taiwanese waters and airspace has pushed the self-ruled island to the edge.
The United Nations has urged restraint from all sides to avoid tensions in the region.
On China, I can tell you that we're, of course, following the developments in the Taiwan Straits closely. We urge the relevant parties to refrain from acts that could escalate tensions in the region.
The Eastern Theatre of the People's Liberation Army started the drills on Thursday. The Joint SWORD 2024 exercise also involves the Navy, Air Force and Chinese rocket units. The exercise has been launched in the Taiwan Strait, the north, south and east of Taiwan, and also around the islands of Kinmen, Matsu and Dongyin.
Till now, Taipei has detected at least 49 Chinese aircraft. In fact, China has warned that Taiwan's independent forces will, and I'm quoting here, leave heads broken and blood flowing, unquote. The Taiwanese Defense Ministry has condemned the attack as irrational provocation. As a response, Taipei has deployed its naval, air and ground forces to defend against the Chinese aggression.
The Australian Foreign Minister's office has warned of increased tensions and has urged peace and stability. The war games come just 3 days after the inauguration of Taiwan's new president, William Lai, who has vowed to protect the island. Taiwan's military has said that Thursday's drills simulated a full-scale war-like situation and not an economic blockade. Taiwanese Defense Ministry has also asked China to stop their acts of intimidation, a sentiment also shared by Taiwan's newly elected president.
The National Armed Forces are in full readiness, upholding the strong will to prepare for war, not to seek war, to respond to war, and not to avoid war, and are confident, capable, and determined to ensure national security.
China has long claimed control over the self-ruled island. The PLA claims that their drills focus on joint sea-air combat readiness patrols, integrated operations and also understanding the joint combat capabilities of the Chinese forces.
China's foreign ministry has also described these as legitimate and necessary moves to safeguard Beijing's national sovereignty. Following UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's surprise election announcement, Scotland has also kick-started preparations for the July polls.
Right, Shivan. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak arrived in Scotland on the first full day of election campaign on Thursday. He met with Scotland's Conservative leader in Inverness, and the two lawmakers shared tea and met with the port workers.
Meanwhile, launching the poll campaign for ruling Scottish National Party, Scotland's newly appointed First Minister John Swinney said he can lead his party to victory in an Independence Day general election.
So we're ready to go, and I'll be out and about around the country. I intend to take my message to every part of the country. I'm the First Minister of all of Scotland, and I intend to be present in every part of Scotland, taking a positive message about the fact that Westminster has inflicted significant damage on the people of Scotland through austerity, Brexit and the cost of living crisis. And the way out of that is for Scotland to be a country that takes our own decisions as an independent country. And people know that they can rely on the SNP to put Scotland first, and that's what will be central to our election campaign.
In his campaign, John Swinney said that the election also gave voters the chance to get rid of Rishi Sunak and his disastrous Conservative government.
It seemed the SNP leader has not taken kindly to the timing of the election. Swinney made a stern remark regarding Rishi Sunak's decision, saying that the decision to hold a general election as Scottish schools begin their summer break is, quote-unquote, the latest act of disrespect from the UK government.
The surprise election in July could pose a challenge for the ruling SNP with the recent change of guard and the growing popularity of the Labour Party. Joe Biden and Kenya's President William Ruto celebrated 60 years of the US-Kenya partnership.
And in a bid to pledge a new era of ties between the two countries, Biden has pledged to designate Kenya as the country's first key non-NATO ally in sub-Saharan Africa.
Proud to announce we're working with Congress to designate Kenya a major non-NATO ally. That's a fulfillment of years of collaboration.
Kenyan President William Ruto is on a 3-day state visit to Washington, D.C. Ruto's trip is the 6th state visit hosted by the Biden administration and the first for an African president since 2008.
Ruto used the state visit to call on economies around the world to take action to reduce the enormous debt burden crushing Kenya.
Have underscored the imperative for our partnership to facilitate recovery from these multiple crises, and particularly for the United States of America to take a leading role in a comprehensive debt resolution framework.
This week's meeting, dubbed as the Nairobi-Washington Vision, comes amid Biden's appeal to African nations that the U.S. can be a better partner than China, as Beijing deepens its investment in the continent through high loans. Meanwhile, in a joint statement, Biden and Ruto announced a range of new U.S.-backed investments in green energy and health manufacturing, along with a plan to cut Kenya's high debt load.
Meanwhile, the White House is also throwing one of its biggest ever state dinners for Kenyan president, further catering to the African leader's tastes by showcasing two uniquely American types of music, gospel and country. Rolling out a red carpet, the Biden administration welcomed Ruto and his wife at the White House North Portico.
The White House has invited more than 450 guests for the gala dinner, which included business executives, musicians, leaders of the United Nations. Well, this is the 6th and the largest of the state dinners that Biden's administration has hosted so far.
Secretary of State of the United States.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And for more on the conclusion of the significance of geopolitical Kenya to the U.S., our correspondent Susan Tehrani sent us this report from New York. Take a look.
The designation is significant because it reflects the deepening relations between the United States and Kenya and demonstrates the Biden administration's commitment to strengthening ties with Africa as a whole. As a major non-NATO ally, Kenya can have access to enhanced security cooperation, technology sharing, as well as economic partnerships with the United States. The move also sends a message to countries like China and Russia that the United States is serious about its engagement in Africa and will not cede ground in the region. Additionally, Kenya's status as the first sub-Saharan African country to receive a designation like this highlights its strategic importance for the United States in the region.
Susan further explains the implications of this state visit for U.S.-Africa relations and the competition with China and Russia. Listen to this.
There's no doubt that this state visit marks a significant moment in U.S.-Africa relations and demonstrates the Biden administration's commitment in engaging with the African continent and building partnerships that go beyond traditional development assistance. President Biden hoped that by inviting President Ruto, he's signaling that he wants deeper connections with Africa. For example, the announcement of semiconductor partnerships and other economic initiatives demonstrates the U.S.'s commitment in supporting Africa's economic development and also sends a message to countries like Russia and China.
Vladimir Putin is in Belarus to meet with President Alexander Lukashenko for wide-ranging talks over security and economy.
Belarus, which is the close ally of Russia, has offered logistical support to Moscow in its war with Ukraine. And the meeting comes as Minsk has appointed a pro-Russia military general and defense minister. We're talking about Major General Pavel Moraviekia.
In another meeting, a Russian delegation led by a chairman of the Russia-North Korea Friendly Parliamentary Group, Grigory Reporter, is in Pyongyang to meet with North Korea's chairman of Supreme People's Assembly, Pak In-chol. The details and agenda of the meeting is yet to be disclosed.
Meanwhile, Russia launched fresh strikes on Kiev on Thursday. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said that Russian strikes targeted country's largest printing facilities with delayed Western support. Ukrainian forces are facing a pushback along its borders with Russia. While informing about the recent strikes, Zelensky continued to urge for increased air defense systems from its Western allies.
The Russian head of Crimea Peninsula has said that Ukrainian strikes killed 2 bystanders in the peninsula's main administrative center. Amid the war developments, the US is preparing a $275 million military aid package for Ukraine. The package is expected to be announced later today and will include 155mm artillery shells, precision aerial munitions and ground vehicles.
In the $95 billion aid bills, at least $8 billion of the weapons aid, which is shouldered on Presidential Drawdown Authority. The emergency provision allows US President Joe Biden to sanction services from US stocks without requiring approval from the US Congress.
All right, time now for a quick break.
But don't go anywhere. On the other side of World DNA, we'll get you a story about how Taliban spokesperson has voiced strong support for the Chabahar port. He called it an alternative to Pakistan's Karachi port for Afghanistan's trade needs. We'll get you the full report on the other side of this very short break.
Also on the other side, in the Indian city of Pune, after a 17-year-old under the influence of alcohol crashed his vehicle into a motorcycle and killed 2 people, Pune police has detained the driver who was present with the minor inside the car at the time of the incident. This and more on the other side of World DNA. Come right back.
The biggest democratic exercise on the planet ever. Decoding the multiple colors of this multi-dimensional, multi-layered spectacle. WION deciphers the images and the hues. Sifts real performance from rhetoric and noise, claims and counterclaims, populist pitches and hidden truths. Untangling, unraveling this celebration of democracy.
As Karan Johar turns a year older, we trace the Indian filmmaker's glorious journey in showbiz. We also decode Indian cinema's prosthetic revolution and know some rare facts about the iconic star, Meryl Streep. All this and much more with me, Isha Hanspal, on WION E-Club at these times.
The penultimate phase of India's general election is here. 58 constituencies spread across 6 states and 2 union territories. Voters reach a crucial juncture as the make-or-break phase begins. AAP and Congress combine take on BJP in Delhi. All 10 seats up for grabs in Haryana. J&K's Anantnag Rajouri finally votes after delay, as Congress hopes for change with 0 strongholds. Come, join the conversation on WION. World is One.
Namaste. Hello friends. We did Dr. Subhash Chandra show popularly known as DSC show, for 4 years, from August 2014 to August 2018. 28 states of Bharat. Of course, we reached out to all of you in 190 countries across the world. The show was very successful. Each episode was being watched by almost 25 million people every week. For past 6 years, the demand of the show has never died down. People write to us, people ask for the show to restart again. Hence, we are beginning the show once again on All Z Network, also on WION, which is the global network channel from India. Again, thank you for your love and affection. See you soon at Subhash Chandra Show.
Welcome back to Watching World DNA with me and Shivan. There's lots lying on the other side of the show, but starting with the headlines first.
India's Met Department warns of a heat wave in Delhi and adjoining North Indian states of Rajasthan, Punjab and Haryana. Intense heat leaves 9 dead in Rajasthan.
CIA Director William Burns to travel to Europe to meet Mossad Chief David Barnea and Qatari Prime Minister Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman Al Thani in an effort to revive hostage release talks.
Will not be deterred from pursuing war on Hamas, says Israel ahead of International Court of Justice decision on South Africa's request for order to halt military actions in Gaza Strip.
Police and demonstrators clash at University of California at Los Angeles hours after the head of the university told U.S. House panel that school should have been ready to immediately remove Palestinian encampment.
Beijing says ongoing drills encircling Taiwan are a test of the military's ability to seize power over the self-ruled island.
Joe Biden welcomes Kenyan President William Ruto for state visit, pledges new era of partnership on technology, security and debt relief to the leader of one of Africa's strongest democracies.
Disturbing footage reveals immediate aftermath of a stage collapse in Mexico that killed 9 and injured at least 50 people, with people running and screaming as strong winds below.
Nvidia adds over $200 billion in market value on Thursday. The shares rise over 9%, building on a stunning rally after a bumper revenue forecast and AI demand boom. With North India continuing to reel under intense heat wave, the Met Department has issued fresh heat wave warning for National Capital Delhi and 3 other states.
A severe heatwave warning with a red alert has been sounded for Rajasthan, Punjab, Haryana and Delhi. There is also a forecast for heatwave conditions in parts of Jammu and Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra and Gujarat.
In Rajasthan, intense heat wave conditions took 9 lives on Thursday, with mercury spiking to 49 degrees Celsius for the past 10 days. 4 people each were killed in Balotra and Jalore districts and 1 person died in Jaisalmer. Barmer recorded 48.8 degrees Celsius, while Jalore saw the maximum of 47.3 degrees Celsius.
Meanwhile, in neighbouring Pakistan, mercury touched the 50-degree mark in Mohenjo-daro. Furthermore, India's coastal regions are witnessing unusual cyclonic activity during the peak summer. IMD has sounded cyclone Rimal alert amid predictions of a depression formation over the Bay of Bengal. An advisory was issued for fishermen, particularly those off the coasts of North Odisha and West Bengal, to return due to the potential for very heavy rainfall and high winds in the central Bay of Bengal.
A low-pressure area brings with it stormy weather, strong and gusty winds. Rainfall in recent days. Several districts in Tamil Nadu and Kerala received heavy rainfall, an unusual occurrence during the peak summer.
The unexpected summer showers in the state also offered a respite from the searing and sultry heat in the region. According to the Indian Weather Office, the monsoon onset is expected by the 31st of May. In the Indian city of Pune, after a 17-year-old under the influence of alcohol crashed his vehicle into a motorcycle and killed 2 people, Pune police has detained the driver who was present with the minor inside the car at the time of the incident.
The accused has claimed that his family driver was behind the wheel when the accident happened. The minor's 2 friends who were with him at the time of the accident have backed his claims. In yet another major development, the State Excise Department has come down heavily to the pubs and bars that serve liquor to minors. The department in Pune has proposed a set of new rules, including cancellation of their bar licenses and installation of CCTV cameras. Our principal diplomatic correspondent Disha Shah brings you more details.
The State Excise Department in the city of Pune has come up with a proposal, a new set of rules, including rupees 50,000 fine or directly cancellation of license of the pubs, bars and hotels that will go on to serve liquor to the minors in the city of Pune. In fact, the rules also proposed include that the people who are about 21 years of age can only be served liquor, light liquor like beer, and people who are 25 years of age can be served hard liquor. And the pubs and the hotels, they have to check the identity card of all the people who are visiting their restaurants. To keep a monitor, to keep a check, the Excise Department has also directed all the pubs, restaurants and bars to install CCTV right outside the premises as well at the entry point, and that can be monitored via the CCTV cameras by the State Excise Department. On the other side, in the major development in this specific case, the driver of the 17-year-old accused who was present inside the car at the time of the incident has been detained by the Pune police, and the driver has testified saying that the father of the accused allowed him that the son should drive the car if he wants to. So this is a major development in this case, and further investigation is underway. With video journalist Siddesh, this is Disha Shah reporting here for WION World is One from Mumbai.
Now, this comes after the Pune Juvenile Court cancelled the bail for the accused. The Juvenile Justice Board sent the 17-year-old to an observation home till the 5th of June as national outrage continued to grow over the incident.
Earlier, the accused teenager was granted bail within 15 hours of the incident under terms which included, number 1, writing a 300-word essay, and the 2 deceased, Anish Avadhya and Ashwani Koshtha, were both IT engineers from Madhya Pradesh. They were returning from a get-together on a bike when the Porsche hit them from behind.
It was reportedly being driven at a speed of 200 kilometers per hour, and They both died on the spot.
In other global news, Taliban spokesperson has voiced strong support for the Chabahar port.
Well, he called it an alternative to Pakistan's Karachi port for Afghanistan's trade needs.
Well, his endorsement comes weeks after India-Iran signed a 10-year-long contract on the development of the port. Mujahid noted that Afghanistan heavily relies on Pakistani ports like Karachi for its imports and exports, but Chabahar offers an alternative route, reducing Afghanistan's dependence on a single corridor and further enhancing its economic independence.
Chabahar port is being developed with Indian assistance in southeastern Iran, and the Taliban spokesperson underscored that it facilitates trade diversification by providing access to India, Central Asia and beyond. He called the diversification crucial for Afghanistan's economic stability and growth. The port's strategic location also allows Afghanistan to engage with multiple trading partners and get access to the vital Indian Ocean.
He further stressed the need to improve Afghanistan's connectivity infrastructure to maximize the benefits of Chabahar port. He said efforts to expand connectivity networks like roads and railways are essential for a seamless trade flow through Chabahar.
In 2016, Iran, India and Afghanistan signed a trilateral agreement to develop Chabahar port as a vital trade corridor. Additionally, Mujahid called for political support to ensure the long-term success of the Chabahar project. Now, notably, days after India and Iran concluded a 10-year agreement on the development of Chabahar port, the United States warned that Indian firms engaging with the port could face sanctions. And this represents a significant shift from the US 2018 decision to grant carve-outs on Iran sanctions specifically for Chabahar. For more on this, our principal diplomatic correspondent Siddhant Sibal sent us this report.
Taliban has come out in support of the Chabahar port in Iran, pointing that this could be an alternative port to Pakistan's Karachi port for Afghanistan. Now, in a detailed statement, the Talibani spokesperson Zabiullah Mujahid pointed to the port's role in connectivity and economic progress of Afghanistan. In the past as well, Taliban has batted for the development of the port, but the timing this time is interesting given the fact that this the detailed statement comes days after India and Iran concluded the contract for 10 years that will see India equipping the port. India, of course, sees this port as important for its geopolitical objective of connectivity, not only with Iran, but the wider Central Asian region and Afghanistan. And the Taliban statement is seen as positive in the wider reference when it comes to this port project. Siddhant Sibal with video journalist Sanjeet in New Delhi.
The Federal Reserve's latest meeting minutes reveal heightened concerns about persistent inflation.
Despite some progress over the past year, recent months have seen inflation stubbornly resist the Fed's efforts to reach its 2% target. Take a look at this next report for more details.
The Federal Reserve left interest rates unchanged this week, citing concerns about inflation. While economic growth remains steady, recent data shows a troubling trend in price increases. Inflation, which had been easing throughout 2023, has stalled in recent months. A key inflation index rose to 4.4% in March, exceeding expectations. This has led the Fed to delay any rate cuts, prioritizing price stability over economic stimulus. The Fed's wait-and-see approach comes amid signs of consumer strain. Minutes from the recent policy meeting revealed concerns about household finances. Rising inflation is forcing consumers to resort to riskier borrowing methods, such as credit cards and buy now, pay later services. This highlights the impact of inflation on lower and middle-income earners. The Fed acknowledged these risks but expressed optimism about the long-term inflation outlook, targeting a return to the 2% benchmark. Fed Chair Jerome Powell had earlier predicted delays in rate cuts owing to persistent inflation.
We've stated that we do not expect that it will be appropriate to reduce the target range for the federal funds rate until we have gained greater confidence that inflation is moving sustainably toward 2%. So far this year, the data have not given us that greater confidence. In particular, and as I noted earlier, readings on inflation have come in above expectations. It is likely that gaining such greater confidence will take longer than previously expected. We are prepared to maintain the current target range for the federal funds rate for as long as appropriate. We're also prepared to respond to an unexpected weakening in the labor market.
Financial markets are adjusting their expectations for rate cuts. While some anticipated a reduction as early as March, the recent inflation data has pushed that timeline back. Markets currently see a 60% chance of a rate cut in September, with the possibility of further cuts by year's end contingent on easing price pressures and a potential slowdown in job growth. The Fed will continue monitoring economic data closely, waiting for a clearer sign that inflation is under control before easing monetary policy. The report, WION for Lisbon.
Finance ministers and central bankers from the G7 nations are gathering in Italy to address pressing global issues.
And a key focus will be on securing continued financial support for Ukraine in its war against Russia. Well, the US has proposed utilizing $300 billion in frozen Russian assets to provide Ukraine with a loan of up to $50 billion. However, legal and technical challenges, along with concerns from European officials, may hinder the plan's immediate implementation. Russia has also threatened retaliation if the assets are seized.
We consider any attacks by the European Union or by anybody else against Russian assets as illegal and in violation of the fundamental principles of international law. As you know, we do have an arsenal of political and economic retaliatory measures. The Russian side strongly rejects such a decision and will take all the necessary steps to protect its national interests, including legal action. Nobody can have any doubts that the European Union will feel full measure of the effectiveness of our reciprocal actions.
Beyond the Ukraine crisis, the G7 will also grapple with rising trade tensions between the United States and China. Recent US tariffs on Chinese imports have sparked fears of a trade war. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has called for a unified G7 approach to counter China's industrial overcapacity.
It's critical that we and the growing number of countries who have identified this as a concern present a clear and united front.
The G7 agenda extends beyond Ukraine and China, reviving efforts to establish a global minimum tax rate for multinational corporations. That will be another topic of discussion. A proposal for a global wealth tax on billionaires is also on the table, despite resistance from some members.
Additionally, the G7 will assess the impact of artificial intelligence on the global economy and review the effectiveness of current sanctions against Russia. The meeting will also address rising tensions between Israel and the Palestine region, with the US expressing concern about potential Israeli banking restrictions on Palestinians.
I'm particularly concerned by Israel's threats to take action that would lead to Palestinian banks being cut off from their Israeli correspondent banks. These banking channels are critical for processing transactions that enable almost $8 billion a year in imports from Israel, including electricity, water, fuel, and food, as well as facilitating almost $2 billion a year in exports on which Palestinian livelihoods depend.
Time to take a look at all the news from the world of technology. OVD Info, a Russian rights group, has said that they have received a notice from YouTube. YouTube has threatened to block the group's official page in Russia. The video platform has accused the group of posting videos that feature news on the Ukraine war. YouTube says that these videos violate law on information technology. The email did not specify which laws were violated. The Russian rights group has said that the demand to block their channel is an act of censorship. The group's channel, Kaktepa, has over 100,000 subscribers. The channel features interviews with Russian opposition figures and political news segments. If deleted, OVD Info's Kaktepa will become the first Russian human rights channel to be banned on YouTube as opposed to banning of specific videos.
South Korea has announced a $19 billion support package for its chip businesses. The move comes amidst an all-out warfare in the global semiconductor market.
As we all know, semiconductors are a field where all-out national warfare is underway. Win or lose, that depends on who can make cutting-edge semiconductors first. We need to provide strong support for semiconductors to ensure that our country doesn't fall behind others in the competition.
Although South Korea is home to the world's top memory chip makers, the country has fallen behind a few rivals in areas such as chip design and contract chip manufacturing. Meanwhile, South Korea is also building a mega chip cluster in Yongjin district. Once built, the chip cluster will be the world's largest high-tech chip-making complex.
A jet-suit flying paramedic has set a new record in Romania. The paramedic reached a mock casualty on the summit of a mountain in under 2 minutes. It usually takes 2.5 hours for a mountain rescue team to reach the summit. Well, manufactured by Gravity Industries, the technology has been in development since 2017. The jet suit can fly at a speed of 136 kilometers per hour. It can fly both during day and night over any terrain in most weather conditions. Meanwhile, UK residents might soon spot a jet suit flying paramedic in their vicinity. The company is planning to conduct live rescues in England's Lake District.
And in the world of sports, the police officer who put world number 1 Scotty Scheffler in handcuffs last week has been disciplined for not activating his body cam.
The police department released 2 videos of the incident.